Welcome everyone to today's AMA regarding our recent partnership we had with Findora. Before we get going, let me give you a brief overview of what Findora aims to achieve. Findora is a layer 1 blockchain building a future for Web3, where you can expect privacy that's audible and programmable. Findora's mission is to ensure you have the option of privacy in Web3, because you should expect privacy from the applications you use. Not to mention, it has a unique product offering that provides a privacy solution for any smart contract with scalability, ease of use, and decentralized security. For people that do not know me yet, I'm Leon and I'm a community moderator at Pen Protocol, and I have been for the past few years. Happy to have everyone tuning in here today to discuss the formal partnership between Ben and Findora. So I'm very happy to introduce Sam Harrison, who's the CEO of Findora. Really glad you have the time to be able to join today's AMA session, and yeah, obviously take time with your schedule to do so. So a very warm welcome, man. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And thank you for having me on. Yeah, for me, it's actually 11 o'clock at night. So there was nothing else on my calendar right now. And so I'm super happy to be able to drop in and say hi to you and your community and answer some questions.
Yeah, very happy that you were able to join. We had some difficulties with so many different time zones. For me, it's 8 in the morning, and I think for Jan it's probably 2 in the afternoon. So yeah, had some shows there,
I
but
mean, this is crypto,
yeah,
man. Crypto is global. Crypto is all hours at all
yeah,
times.
for sure.
And that's just how it is.
Amazing. All right, before we do a deep dive into Fedora, would you mind briefly introducing everyone who you are and how did you fall down yeah, to the rabbit hole, so to say?
The classic
Yeah.
question. This is a great one. So, my name is Sam Harrison, and as you mentioned, I am the CEO of Findora. I'm actually the CEO of a company called Discreet Labs, and it's important to make this difference because Discreet Labs is a software development company, much like Protocol Labs or Dapper Labs or so many of these other. Uh, software development companies who have built and deployed a decentralized, layer one blockchain. That's what we have done as well, is develop and deploy the Findora blockchain. So saying that I'm the CEO of Findora is a little bit inaccurate, but it's okay. So a little bit about where I come from, or a little bit about how I fell down the rabbit hole. So a couple of years ago, I was working with this fantastic team at a company called Knock Knock Labs, and we were using something called a private and public key encryption pairs. Now, in crypto, we all know what these are, and so we're not too worried about them or too wowed by them. But this allowed a secure abstraction layer to be placed between a user and his profile that was usually sitting on a database somewhere. And the job at the company I was working at was built around selling these databases, selling servers for the population. And then I saw the Ethereum white paper, and I realized that anybody who was selling databases or servers, well, they were basically out of a job. So I realized that the technology that I had at my fingertips that we were working on at Knock Knock and the solution set of blockchain would mean that our job and everything that we did would no longer be relevant pretty soon. Now, it's been 5, 6, 7 years or so since that happened. So obviously, Knock Knock's still alive and still out there, and blockchain hasn't conquered the world yet. But it was that's the way I jumped into it. So then I started at Tezos because I was very interested in making sure the technology that I was working with had solved some of the problems that they had already found, but we encountered new ones. We encountered problems around development and around community and around the ability to find good, high quality developers. OCaml is a fantastic and difficult language, but the population pool of OCaml developers is very shallow. So I learned a lot about community development and community engagement there, but I didn't see enough adoption. So when I chose to leave Tezos, I went over to Thundercore, which was based entirely on adoption. Like, that was their goal. They had blockchain technology that was good enough, but their goal was to drive adoption, which was really interesting. Unfortunately, Thundercore itself didn't work out. There were some problems with the CEO and the management over there. Good people, just they made some choices that ended up not working out for them in the long run. So when the U.S. operations closed up shop, I actually decided to take a little bit of time off from the crypto space. Uh, I'm sure everyone has experienced this a couple of times in their life about asking, when you encounter a rug after a rug after a rug, you're like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't be in this space because I thought that what we were doing was supposed to be bigger than just getting rich, right? I thought that we were doing what we were working on, what we were trying to accomplish was about actual, financial freedom, about independence, about standing on our own 2 feet. And so I had to take a few minutes to really understand and use what one of my mentors, Phil Dunkelberger, once called his validation protocol to understand what it was that I was putting my life behind. Because that's the one thing we can never get back, right? We can never get back the half an hour we spend watching Love is Blind. I'm kidding. My sister loves that show. But the takeaway is, I decided to take a little bit and figure out if I really wanted to be in crypto. And then I met up with a great team at Harmony, and they brought me back in. Harmony had both a wonderful run, but then they also made they were the subject of a horrible bridge hack, and then they also had a couple of other issues that they ran into. And so when I was looking for a new spot and Findora was available, they brought me on over. And so that's how I fell down the rabbit hole. That's a very long story to a very simple thing. This technology is simply amazing. I absolutely love it. And I want to see adoption far and wide of the technology itself and the real spirit, the real independent spirit of a blockchain, degen or OG, the original gangster. Maybe not degen. I think that may be have a different connotation,
Yeah,
but an original generation
yeah, I
degen
couldn't agree more.
to this
That was
space.
quite a story, man. Very, very thankful for that. Touch on some really good things as well. Adoption and the fact that crypto being 24/7 makes people really burn out. So yeah, for me as well, I sometimes need to take a step back and realize that I have a normal life as well, you know. But yeah, quite a story. With that in mind, since I briefly explained, well, Findora in a nutshell in my introduction, could you elaborate more in my explanation and touch a bit on the overall vision of Findora?
Yeah. So let's see. A little bit more of the explanation of Findora.
Hmm.
So the thing about Findora, the reason why I moved into Findora after Harmony was because we've kind of begun to crack. Okay, we know what the path to adoption is. Like there's still a little bit of waiting and a little bit of figuring out. Okay, is the market right? Is the market right? Is the market right? And so making sure we have the proper technology to apply to all of the various different use cases of this technology, that's the next step for me in my journey in crypto. And so what Findora was offering was this and is this completion of the crypto manifesto almost. This idea that you can actually have total independence and total choice around what data you are letting out into the Web 2 and Web 3 world. So using, Findora technology, it's a very complicated stack. It's probably the most complicated technological stack I've ever had to wrap my brain around. But it's a dual chain architecture with both a UTXO and an EVM chain. We're using very advanced zero knowledge proofs to handle mainly the privacy because the scalability issue. As I know, we do talk about scalability a lot in this space, but to be frank and to be fair, we don't really need it yet. We're still muddling along just fine with the scalability we have, absent the gas fees on Ethereum. But we've kind of solved that problem. So, the ZK tech that we use is extremely, high level. The EVM is fantastic, and there's more. But I feel like I've wandered away from the question a little bit. Do you mind restating it? So it's like explain Findora in a nutshell, a little bit more of the explanation, and a little bit of the vision. Is that
Yeah,
right,
yeah, sure
Leon?
thing. Yeah.
So the vision here is, at the end of the day, we want people to be able to have their independence. And part of that independence actually revolves around choice. Actually, a lot of it revolves around choice. But to be able to reach choice, you need to have the freedom to choose. You need to have privacy, because privacy itself is the ability for you to walk into a room, make a decision, and then walk out of the room and tell somebody what that decision is. You need to be able to really have that level of control over all of the things you do. And so when it comes to finance, when it comes to, a collection of NFTs, when it comes to games, when it comes to so many of these various different pieces, you need to be able to have the freedom to choose how much privacy you're going to include. And so that's the vision, is to be able to provide a very usable, very user friendly, privacy preserving blockchain that also has the ability to play well in the compliance and regulation frameworks that we're faced with.
That's actually a very interesting way of going, so to say, because the privacy
Mm-hmm.
aspect is really, really important in decentralized finance.
Mm-hmm.
Am I correct in saying that, let's say, if I send an TX on Fedora, I can hide my TX, I can hide my wallet address, I can hide my other wallet information when sending information on there for finance properties purposes. I mean, how can can I go about there?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So there's a little bit of nuance there that I want to make sure that we're clear about. So Findora has the ability to mask certain aspects of the transaction. Masking the transaction itself would break a little bit of what the how the blockchain works. So if you look at the Block Explorer, you're still able to see that a transaction happened. That being said, you are able to mask what who the transaction was between, so the sender and receiver address. You're able to mask what sort of asset was transferred. So is it an Ethereum, is it an FRA token, is it an NFT? And you're able to mask the amount that token, the amount of that asset that was transferred. So let's say it's 500 ETH. So you can actually mask all of those things. But the important point here is that you also have the choice to reveal it. It's not masked automatically, and by default, you have to, click the toggle. But then being able to choose to reveal it is also completely up to you, and not something that we control here at Findora. Does that help answer the question a little
Yeah,
bit? A
for
little bit
sure. Yeah,
elaborate on
yeah,
that?
that's amazing. Not gonna lie. Very good. All right. Seeing as we at Band Protocol had a strategic integration with Findora, yeah, to obviously give developers an endless scalability option to access off-chain data on Findora. Also being the first and only Oracle solution on your platform. Could you touch on what this means for Findora and give a keen explanation of the formal partnership as we advance?
Well, first off, I always like being keen. That's a great word.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that you use the word keen. Um, it's really interesting because we have talked about this in the space for quite a while. We may not be talking about it too much anymore because it's pretty much been solved, but this is the Oracle problem, right? So we have all this information that's living out there on the blockchain, and all of this information is immutable. And we create these smart contracts that say, if A happens, then do B, right? But the question is how do we know whether or not A has happened? And that's where we come to the Oracle program or the Oracle problem. Somebody or something we trust has to tell us that A happened, right? So let's say, Leon, I'm living here in Palo Alto, California. So my local football team, American football team, not soccer, but this is the American football
Yeah.
team, is the San Francisco 49ers. So if, for example, we bet each other that the 49ers would win the Super Bowl, we can actually code that into a smart contract, which then we would put our betting amounts, let's say it's $100 or whatever, into escrow, where it would pay out upon the resolution of the Super Bowl. The question is who are you going to trust to tell you the Super Bowl? Leon, as much as I love you, man, I don't want to trust your best
Yeah.
friend to tell me what happened as a result of this game. I want to be able to trust a third party source, some people would say, turn to ESPN, but what if ESPN is wrong? But that's what we have band protocol for. So it provides us this Oracle solution for price feeds, for results of sporting events, for anything and everything that you may need a real world reference to outside of the blockchain. And so that's why we are super excited to integrate with Band. I think it's excellent, and the ability for the developers, the people who deploy apps onto Findora, to be able to pull from your feed. That is fantastic. That is one of the most valuable things that we could have, so that developers have the tools that they need to build whatever products they can using both your services and our privacy preserving technology.
Thanks for the keen explanation. For anyone for anyone
It's
listening,
always good to be
yeah, for
keen.
anyone listening and building on Fandora, looking yeah for any help regarding our Oracle tech, you're obviously free to reach out on either Telegram or Discord. Moving forward, thanks for the yeah for the keen explanation.
Of course,
Yeah,
happy
yeah.
to.
Could you give an overview of what the big milestone has been for Findora thus far? I've seen a very massive partnership drop a few days prior regarding triple masking. We touched on masking
Mhm.
obviously already a bit earlier in the convo. From what I can tell, the project is still very much in her baby shoes and has accomplished quite a lot already in the first year. So yeah, what's that to look forward to for everyone?
That's an interesting idiom, Leon, baby shoes. Because, it's not one that's used commonly in English, but I really like it. It really points to the idea that we're a toddler walking out there and exploring the world. And it's very much true. To be honest, we are assembling all of the pieces that we need to have this blockchain be one of the most robust and influential and paradigm shifting blockchains in the market. And the big announcement regarding that was triple masking. So we talked a little bit about the importance of privacy, about the fact that, quite honestly, being able to make the choice of what relationships you enter into, of whether or not you're going to share certain data or give certain data away, should be totally up to you. But the thing that in itself, the ability to mask and unmask technology is one thing. But the ability on the second level to make that privacy compliant with laws is a whole nother thing, which is a whole nother very important piece of update. Thinking about adoption, thinking about blockchain adoption, if we scroll our mind back, 5 years or so, we were thinking that every bank and their sister would want to, join blockchain and do all of their account settling on blockchain because it was so much faster. We could get rid of all the clearinghouses, all the Swift and Swift 2 sort of payment rails that exist. We could get rid of Western Union and the 20% markup on remittances that they charge. But for some reason, in the last 5 minutes, that sort of adoption and those cost savings never happened. And the reason is quite simple. We were exploring this blue ocean technology without ever thinking about, what sort of laws would come into place when we came back to shore. When we went back to the brown water right next to the seashore, and we said, okay, now we're here to play with the laws of the land. What do we need to do? So, moving money backwards and forwards without being able to trace it is actually illegal. Well, let me be frank. Financing illegal
Yeah,
activities
yeah,
is
yeah,
illegal. Yeah. So I should specify that a
yeah.
little bit. And so the ability to show and to prove that you're not financing illegal activities, I think, is very important. But the power should be in your hands. It shouldn't be in the hands of Findora. It shouldn't be in the hands of some, super secret, government agency. It should be in your hands because we have all of these various different checks and balances about, okay, if I think that you have broken the law, then I can't just come and arrest you and you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent. I actually have to subpoena information and records from you. I have to go to a judge and tell the judge why I think you've broken the law. He has to agree with me and say there's a reasonable chance that I have done something wrong. And then they come to me and say, hey, we believe you've done something wrong and we have the power to have you show us your information. but I still have the ability to unveil it. And this is called asset tracing. So when you deploy a contract on a Findora, you can receive this encryption key, which, if under the power of subpoena or just your personal desire, you wish to avail yourself of this key, you can unlock the tracing capability of that contract, right? So now you're able to show that your assets that you've moved around en masse on the blockchain have never touched the wallets of somebody who, for example, is financing ballistic missile tests, right? Talking just a little bit about Findora or about Harmony back in the day. Harmony was hacked by North Korea, which totally sucked. But that meant that $100 million that was stolen from the Harmony bridge is going to finance things like their ballistic missile testing. And we don't necessarily want to do that. We don't want to break any laws. We think it's important to render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. And so from that, we built this additional ability for the people who deploy the contracts, not the government, not Findora, the people who deploy the contracts to be able to trace it. And I think those are both very, very massive changes, very, very massive shifts in what the technology is capable of doing in the blockchain space.
Yeah, for sure. Uh, nice explanation, thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
on that note, what makes Findora different from other blockchains? Obviously, there's a lot of competition and funding behind some of the big names. Top of mind, I would say Avalanche, Polygon, Solana, Aptos. Yeah,
Mhm.
competition is obviously never a bad thing by nature, but just curious regarding your take on the matter. For my personal experience, although it never is a zero sum game, there's enough, um, yeah, a piece of the pie left, so to say.
Yeah.
But just yeah, wondering what's your take on that?
So I am a believer in the multi-chain thesis and the multi-chain hypothesis, where um, each chain is going to be developing its own community and its own set of people who will be using that particular chain, and they'll fall in love with it. Right? There's actually a lot of parallel between blockchain and Web3 and religions. Right? We tend to think about we are a Bitcoin maximalist or an Ethereum
Yeah,
maximalist or
yeah,
whatever it is, and everybody else is just fundamentally wrong and they're all going to hell. I don't believe in that, right? I think that what we're all working for is actually the same thing for the most part, which is this ability to have financial independence and financial freedom. Um, but the deeper and more meta narrative to that is that we recognize that the future is one in which our physical and our digital selves are going to be combined. We'll need to be able to own both that which is digital and that which is physical. And to do that, we need to have a very strong and very powerful digital way of ownership to prevent double spending. So that is the goal. And I think everybody is working towards that goal. So when I think about what Findora is doing and doing different from other projects, is that we were built from the ground up to be able to focus on this privacy preserving technology. In fact, there are things about us that are completely unique. I'm not aware of any other blockchain that has a dual chain infrastructure as its base chain. I understand there are a lot of chains out there that have, the side chains, or they have game chains, or all of the various different ways in which they try to segment their users and put them in certain areas to solve the scalability issue. And that's great. That's a very innovative solution. But for me, our two chains actually work together to provide technological capabilities that single chains simply cannot do, just because of the nature of who they are. So I think at the end of the day, just like there's a Windows operating system and there's a Linux operating system and there is a Mac operating system. I think we'll end up in the future in the same sort of way, where you have certain machines that are built to accomplish certain specific tasks. Like I don't think I would ever use my MacBook to. Well, let me put it this way: if you're a gamer, you probably have a Windows PC, right? Like if you're a gamer, that's just what you do.
yeah,
And if you're a designer, if you're into art or video or music, you probably have a
hmm
Mac. And if you are a hardcore coder or you work with servers and storage infrastructure, you're probably working on Linux. But the point is, that's what I think is going to happen with blockchain as well. We're going to end up a little bit more specific. It's not going to be one person takes all.
Yeah, I do agree, and that isn't a bad thing by nature. Obviously, the best projects will flourish, and since it's new tech, a lot of people are coming out and trying to yeah enter the crypto space or make new IDs, so to say. So obviously, there are more projects gonna avail, but eventually only a few will last. So yeah, how are actually the technical components for Findora, block speed, etc. Can you tell something about that for everyone listening in?
Yeah, I mean, the technical considerations are pretty straightforward. We have thousands of transactions per second, so there's no worry there as far as transaction throughput. The gas is extremely minimal. There's just a standard little tiny gas. It's 0.001 FRA right now, which is great. Our block speed is about 15 seconds. And that's only because, but that's all standard, right? I mean, there's nothing unique about those specifications. The big difference comes in the specifications for the UTXO chain, the Prism Plus Plus atomic swap transfer bridge, and the EVM chain, right? So those EVM stats you just heard, you're like, okay, yeah, I've seen so many more of those. That's not that big of a deal. But using the unspent transaction output mechanism of the UTXO chain, that is what enables us to do some really, really strong privacy preserving tech. The transfer bridge, where we wrap all these various different assets in privacy, is also super important. And those things are what makes us different. And that's what we focused on for the last 2 years. We have stuff on the roadmap for the rest of this year and next year about optimizing our EVM chain, because there's been a lot of work in the EVM space about making things better, faster, stronger, more reliable. But our focus has been on this privacy tech, and it is. I'm not a technical person. I'm not a technical co-founder. They brought me in after the tech was basically finished, but I have never been so impressed with the vision and execution. It's just amazing, amazing technology.
Sweet. So what is that to look out for Q3, Q4 regarding the roadmap for Findora?
That's a good segue.
Yeah.
So a couple of things. I mean, there's a lot of optimization that we still need to do in the EVM side, right? Right now, right now we're working at about 15 seconds is our block time. Although recently we've had some, a little bit up, a little bit down. There were some upgrades that had played some havoc with our blockchain, our block time. But those are looking a little bit more under control. And we actually want to see if we can get that block time down to 7 seconds by the end of the year, right? So we want to cut our blockchain in half. Again, it's not, going to be a ton faster than any of the other chains out there, but we're beginning to optimize the EVM side of this technology. At the same time we're doing that, we're also going to be looking at how do we start including other ecosystems outside of Ethereum, right? So we have started our work, although it's very, very early, but we've started to work on WebAssembly contracts, right? So that we can start playing in the Cosmos space as well. Our UTXO chain is written in Rust, so there's already a level of comparison there. There's already a level of compatibility there, and so that's kind of one of the next big areas that we're looking at. We're going to get this, privacy on Ethereum revved up, and then privacy is coming for Cosmos.
Yay! Yeah, Cosmos is probably has a good future ahead of them with IBC and everything going
Mm-hmm.
around there. I think it's really good. So I hope to see you guys moving there anytime soon. With all
We'll see. Like I said, this is future planning,
yeah,
and all we've looked at so far is saying, hey, this could be very
mhm.
interesting. I don't know exactly how that would play out
No, but of course,
yet.
yeah,
But you asked for a little bit of
yeah,
alpha, so I thought
sure.
throw
Sure,
some alpha
sure.
out to you and your team.
All right, with that provided, you obviously also have your own platform token, which is FRA. How does that
Mhm.
come all together in this? What's the main use case here?
For the FRA
Yeah,
token,
yeah,
yeah, that's our utility token, right? So that's what you use to pay gas in. And so anytime you work on the token, now I do want to be sure that we pay attention to this because we have to be careful. There do exist out there in the blockchain universe two different types of FRA tokens. The FRA tokens that you would buy on exchange, like KuCoin, those are your EVM tokens. So that's what you want to have when you're processing stuff on the EVM chain. That being said, we also have staking at Findora, but the staking currently is done with our UTXO tokens, right? So you have to make sure you do that. Now, I know that there's some EVM staking. I believe. Do we have Daniel Pagan? He may be able to speak if he wants to, just to a little bit on kind of the EVM staking route and when and where that's going to be. I know we've been talking about that a lot. I'm just not sure what the latest is, if that's still supposed to be in Q2 or if that's been moved to Q3. But
yeah,
on the other side of it, it's yeah, that's what the FRA token
sure.
is, right? We have yeah, it's our utility
Yeah,
token.
got you. If you can request to be a speaker, Daniel, then you probably can dive in a bit more on the EVM staking.
I can just ping him really quick
Uh,
um,
then we can come back.
and then he'll tell
Yeah, we
me.
can get back a little later. We had the same issue with Band as well. When we moved from Ethereum to the native token, you can only stake with native Band, obviously. But there were some ways, from what I can recall, that you were able to stake your EVM tokens as well. I think through BoringDAO or any other external um, platform. But I'd love for you to touch on that. I see that he became a speaker as well. So go
Hey
ahead.
guys.
Yeah,
Hey,
you're
thanks,
welcome.
thanks,
You're
thanks
welcome.
for passing me
Hey,
the
Pagan.
mic. Hey, how's it going, guys? Yeah, really quick on the EVM staking. So last I heard, well, front end is pretty much done. The design of the front end is pretty much done. We actually did a community poll about a month ago, asking the community, "Hey, what is it that you guys want from a staking portfolio, or rather from a staking dashboard?" And we made sure that when we went back to the drawing board to design the front end, that we incorporated a lot of their items from their wish list, right? So with that out the way, with the front end done, I know we have staking for EVM on testnet, but I think we're actually pushing that back just a little bit and prioritizing triple masking and asset tracing. We want to make sure that all of that is sorted before we hit EVM staking, because transitioning staking from the UTXO layer to the EVM layer, my understanding is no small feat. On the
Yeah.
engineering side, it's quite a lot of work, but you know, trying to just prioritize the efforts of the engineers. We're just making sure that
Yeah.
triple masking and asset tracing is all
And
sorted
to
and
be fair,
ironed out.
and to be fair, Leon and Daniel, I don't know how much you guys work with these cutting edge, really, really, really smart developers. They like to work on new problems.
Yeah,
They like
yeah.
to crack open the new problems and stuff. And staking has been around. I mean, I was there with Tezos when Tezos
Mm,
launched, right? And Tezos was the first production proof of stake network out there. Um, and so staking has been around for a little bit. So they may not be as thrilled with solving an older problem as they are about continuing to push forward on this new triple masking and asset tracing one. At the end of the line, at the end of the day, for me and for the people here at Findora, there's so much work to be done, and it's very exciting and it's a lot of fun. And we'll get to it. It's
sure.
just a matter of
Baby steps.
figuring
Yeah.
out how to incentivize these engineers to work on the boring old problems rather than the sexy new
Yeah,
ones.
prioritization is always key in a company. Yeah, I've been with Ben for quite a while now, and I can safely say that our tech team is so insanely well knowledged. That's out of another world. Um, Yeah, same thing.
And real
Yeah.
quick, Leon, just to add, I know that you were asking about Q3 and Q4. If for anyone listening, if you actually go to findora.org/roadmap, that'll actually take you to an article that we wrote up earlier in the year documenting everything that we have lined up for 2023. So feel free to take a look.
Neat. Yeah,
Findora.org/roadmap.
nice one.
See, that's why you bring Pagan on these things, because he'll drop in, he'll do the shill that I tend not
Yeah,
to
yeah,
do as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
So he'll push you to the various different websites and everything.
Sure. I've done some things as well. I've seen you guys. Can you probably tell more about the grant program? I've seen that you have a 100
Yeah.
million foundation fund to fund innovative applications to be deployed on the Findora blockchain. How does it go about? How can people contact you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the way you contact us is you just, start following Pagan around, and when he goes to the grocery store, you stop him and ask him about it. Actually, don't. Actually, that was a horrible joke. Please, nobody do that.
You jinxed it.
So we do have $100 million that we have committed to the growth of the Findora ecosystem in the form of providing grants to projects. Now, let me be very clear. These are grants, and we're being very careful about who we're giving these grants to. So in Q1, for example, we had over 80 applications for the grants, and we ended up approving about 4 of them, 4 or 5 of them. And so you can understand that this is not, we're not simply trying to buy users. We're not simply trying to, buy attention. What we're trying to do is find the projects that need just a little bit of help, that have a very cool product, and they're like, hey, we just need a little bit of help to be able to deploy this on your guys' chain. And so we're like, all right, sure, we'll incentivize you to come and deploy
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And that's really what
Yeah,
it
you're not
is.
as VC either, so I get that point of
Yeah,
view. Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
And since another interesting question I had is, yeah, since you were with Harmony before, what were
Mm-hmm.
actually the difficult aspects you had to overcome when moving from Harmony to Findora, and how did you manage to, yeah, particularly solve these issues?
That's an excellent question. The time at Harmony was fascinating, because we both went through a really very interesting time together where, the bull market was going crazy and Harmony was just on fire, and we were doing a lot of things right. And it was very, very exciting. Then, because we were, there are members of the, things got too exciting, right? And people started getting distracted. Um, One of the things that I learned, and this is not simply from Harmony, this is going back to, some of Phil's wisdom that he taught me when I was working at Knock Knock, and another great mentor of mine, Dave Weiner, who is our general counsel there, taught me when I was at Knock Knock as well, which it has to do with fundamentals. It has to do with the fact that, as if we keep on chasing, if we chase like the shiny object over and over and over again, we will always be behind when it comes to what's actually happening on the ground. We need to focus on very, very core fundamentals. So when I came over to Findora and they put me in as the CEO, I was thinking about it a lot, and I didn't put things like shipping product on time or getting triple masking out on time as the key deliverable for the team. I had a handful of core deliverables that I wanted everybody to keep in their mind as they did their work. And that's stuff like user growth, having more unique active wallets on the chain. I wanted to see the transactions going up so we could see that the chain itself is being used more and more. I want to see more decentralized applications being deployed, and those decentralized applications using their own assets. Because again, that shows more and more utility. I want to see the raw number of our community grow. So that's the numbers of legitimate followers on Twitter and on Reddit and in our Discord server and on our Telegram chats, right? And then, of course, one of the things that I really want to focus on, but sometimes it's a little hard to find authentic numbers here, is the size of our open source developer pool. And this is something I learned also at Tezos, right? Well, if you don't have these developers, you're not really an open source project. You can just keep on churning out stuff internally, but it never becomes a community project. And so those 6 things are all things, those are fundamentals, right? I'm not thinking about anything flashy. I'm not thinking about any sort of, hey, I'm going to chase the next trend. All I'm thinking about is core fundamentals to make sure that Findora goes the distance. That's probably my number one thing that I wanted to bring from my prior experience, whether it be at Harmony or at Tezos or any of the other places
Yeah,
I've worked.
very cool. Um, yeah, on that note, how can people stay up to date with Findora? Do you have a Discord, a Telegram, or where can people chime in?
Yeah. So I guess this is the part where Pagan's going to yell at me to say like and subscribe and follow us on Twitter. So we're definitely on Twitter. It's at Findora, and then we have a Reddit, so you guys can check us out there. I'll ask Daniel Pagan to jump in with some of these because I know that there's a Findora and a Findora official, and I'm not sure which one is actually the official one. But I'll let him jump in there. And then,
Yeah.
of course, like the Discord chat, the Discord server is great. We have some great people in there, and I think we have a couple. I see Ed Norris and Patrick on in the spaces, and I've seen them both in Discord often. So, Pagan, how do people join the Discord, and which is the correct accounts for them to follow or subreddits to subscribe to?
So the easiest way to find us on social media for chats and just following everything that we're doing, it's actually pretty straightforward. We set up some shortcuts for everyone. So it's findora.org/discord/telegram/reddit/Twitter. Very straightforward. So if you're looking to join one of them, just put the slash and the name right in front of it, and it'll guide you to the right place.
Oh, clever.
Ease of use.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, it's super simple.
Cheers. I think with that, I think we probably covered the broad overview of the ongoing developments and the partnership. Before, I think we can move on to some of the Q&A questions from both communities. Communities, if we have some time left. I picked some questions that were dropped under the posts. Let's see if I can find a nice one. Quite a few. Yeah, we had a question from a user who asks, how does Findora approach user adoption and education, and what resources are available for developers and users to get involved with your platform?
That's a great question. So watch for us, number one, watch for us at hackathons. We participated in ETH SF up here in San Francisco. We're based off in California. What was that?
Consensus? Weren't you there either?
We were at Consensus, but they didn't have a hackathon. We didn't participate in a hackathon with Consensus. We were just there at the event. But we were at ETH Denver, and we participated in the hackathon there. And if you watch for further hackathons like ETH Waterloo and ETH New York, and a few others will be there. So we're working closely with the team over at ETH Global to participate there. So all of those places are places you can find us. And of course, if you want to learn more and get into our information, the docs page. And Pagan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's just, findora.org/docs.
Docs.findora.org. Although I should set that up as another shortcut.
There you go.
But docs.findora.org. Yeah, there's developer docs, user docs for staking, the wallet. There's even documentation on how to build a validator on Findora. And I know, Sam, you actually called out Patrick, who's listening right now. How's it going, Patrick?
Hey,
Patrick is one of our community members, and he helped create, this is something that you'll see in docs.findora.org, a very easy-to-use validator onboarding tool where you can have a validator running with just a few clicks. It is super simple. You'll find that there as well.
Yeah, nice. And that's the thing that I love about the community, right? And this is the thing that I actually have loved about all blockchain, is some of the best tools actually don't come from the core devs themselves. When I was at Tezos, the best wallet and the best, they call them bakers rather than validators because Tezos is weird, but it's neither here nor there. But some of the best software didn't come from the team at the Tezos Foundation. It came from the community. It came from the people out there who were passionate about it and would build really cool shit and then give it away for free, which I don't understand. Which is why, as much as I love Patrick, sometimes I get a little confused. I'm like, you get dropped on your head when you're angry. But the point is, that's one of the great things about communities in general in blockchain and Findora's community in particular. So I want to invite everybody to come and join us and bring your talent and bring your expertise. And I promise that like Patrick, I will drop notes and hellos to you guys when I see you on Spaces or out there in the wild. Because even though I'm the CEO of Discreet Labs, I'm part of the community. I hope I am.
Yeah,
So
that's why incentivized programs are so good in crypto, because the better talent usually comes from community instead of raw hardcore hiring people that aren't in the space and come from finance backgrounds.
mhm.
People in crypto, yeah, already have all the know about. So I couldn't agree more with what you just said. Um, we have another question from a user who asks, um, can you discuss any applications or industries where Findora's technology is particularly well suited or has potential for growth?
That's an excellent question. There are two that I talk about fairly often. There are so many more. But these two I'll talk about just because I feel like talking about them tonight. Number one is gaming. So here's the thing that I keep on thinking about in blockchain games. They're not fun. I'm sorry. The idea behind blockchain games, about at least the development of the blockchain games when you're starting, most of the time they first say, okay, we have this piece of blockchain technology. How do we use it? Which is a fine approach to design. But it's not a fine approach to gaming design. Gaming design, really, you got to start with saying, hey, what would be cool to do, right? And then from there, you kind of flesh it out and say, okay, this is the world we're going to build and all this stuff. Now, Findora has the ability through the privacy technology that we have to be able to mask certain information about the games to allow the games to actually be more fun. And the reason I say it this way is because I like to cheat. Sorry, that's a weird way of saying it, but to be fair, if anybody ever really wants to win, they will end up finding their way into cheating,
Yeah.
right? Even though that's not winning, you're actually going outside the game.
Mhm.
But for example, in some of the older and original blockchain games, such as CryptoKitties, you could figure out by looking at the code what you would have to do to get an output of a specific kitty with specific features. Same thing happened with DeFi Kingdoms when we were at Harmony. Somebody looked at the code and they wrote up the entire map of if you want to have a specific hero, then you have to go through these permutations and combinations to get there. No, that, like I said, is that cheating or is that just being clever? Okay. But what you don't have is you don't have the surprise. And because you don't have the surprise, it's not quite as much fun.
No, that
But with the Findora privacy technology, you can reintroduce surprise. So I would love to see more blockchain gamers come our
yeah,
direction. The other,
the element of
go ahead.
the element of surprise is very keen for the dopamine effect. So really need
I
that.
see you
Yeah.
just use the word keen again. That's awesome. Well done. Well done.
Cool.
um, So yeah, so the other thing that I would say is actually institutions. We talked about this a little bit up on top. Um,
Hmm.
Asset tracing allows institutions to be able to helps institutions satisfy their anti-money laundering and their non-terrorist financing and the regulations that they are required to follow just to operate in the jurisdiction they're in. And at the same time of that asset tracing, you're also not revealing all of the wallet balances and buying and selling of things of high net worth individuals because they don't like that. They like to be private, right? And so finally, the large financial institutions have a blockchain solution that can both keep their high net investors private at the same time as complying with the regulations of the jurisdiction that they're in. And so I see that being a potential very large upside for Findora engagement.
Sweet, sweet. I think I see we covered most of the other questions. I've just been pinged by Jen that some listeners tuning in had a question, so perhaps you guys could answer some of them if we give them a speaker possibility. Okay.
Yeah, I got a couple more
Yeah.
minutes. Yep.
If people want to ask a question, then please request because I think they ran out.
Yeah.
Yes, if any listeners right now have any more questions, please request to become a speaker, and I will turn on the permission.
Hi, Sam and Daniel. Good evening. So I had a question in mind for both of you. First is regarding the scaling aspect. So you mentioned that Findora currently does not have, scaling on the horizon. You're focusing on immediate goals, but at some point in time when the blockchain grows to a certain size, right, and you have a certain daily or monthly transaction benchmark, what happens then? So what is your plan to scale the protocol or the project at that point? And my second question is regarding the product market fit. So could you clarify again as to what product market fits are you looking for projects on your blockchain, and even the protocol itself? What specific domains are you looking to venture towards for the core technology stack as well? So when you mention
Those are some.
privacy,
Yeah.
right? So when you mention privacy, I think you've mentioned that one of the key features of Findora is going to be triple masking, right? Uh, so what next beyond triple masking is the project looking towards? Thank you.
Ah, we got three questions wrapped into that one. So let's see if we can take them one at a time. Okay, let's see. The first question, if I remember correctly, had to do with scaling. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. So regarding the scaling, so right now we can process thousands of transactions per second, and so that is sufficient for the amount of throughput that we need. As the throughput increases, which I'm hoping that happens as soon as next quarter, right? And by increasing, I mean it goes so hockey stick up that we desperately have to fix some of the scaling and the mass scaling potential issues. We have some of the best zero knowledge proof computer sciences scientists in the business. Our application specific turbo plunk is 10 times faster at creating and running a ZK circuit than what they're using, for example, over at Zcash. This technology is cutting edge. And so when we need to turn on the switch for scaling solutions, we have a very, very powerful switch to turn on. So that's step one. Step two, you were asking a little bit about product market fit. And product market fit is a very interesting question because it's really hard to show product market fit beforehand. Usually it's a lagging indicator that you see. You can see all the growth and you're like, oh, we got that because we had product market fit. Now, there are only been two markets that blockchain has shown to have any sort of product market fit for that. And that's finance, and so in our terms, DeFi, and that is NFTs. Those are the only two that have broken kind of beyond this simple, I think this is a good idea, I think this is a good idea for product market fit. Now, last week, in addition to triple masking, we also announced that Sushi was going to be deploying and will be deploying a DEX on Findora. That's step one, right? Is getting legendary, top shelf, decentralized exchanges deployed, bringing that liquidity, bringing those incentives onto our chain, and showing the DeFi universe what privacy can actually do. So that's step one. So we got Sushi, which is fantastic. Now, when we're talking about NFTs, the shine of NFTs has kind of come off after last year, which is okay because I think what people are really beginning to understand is NFTs are actually much, much more powerful than just saying that I own, like flexing that I own a JPEG worth $250,000, right? There's more to what we can do with NFTs than just that, because at its core, a non-fungible token is a representation of intellectual property. I own this copyright to this particular, board ape or whatever the case is. And right now, privacy in that situation, it would be counterproductive, because the reason why we own board apes is for the PFP, right? Is to be able to flex, say, I am the man, I am the man. And having that be private may not be the most important. That being said, if you move beyond thinking about copyrights and you start thinking about software licenses or patents or other forms of intellectual property, and think about those eventually being put on chain, there's going to be a lot of cases for privacy that you'll need for these particular assets. For example, if I put a software license for a security software that my company is using, I do not want to broadcast that software license far and wide. And in fact, most companies have built into their service contracts with their software security provider that they cannot advertise that, let's say, Coca-Cola uses McAfee antivirus. I pulled two brands out of my head that are way too old to actually be relevant here in blockchain these days. But the point is Coca-Cola wouldn't do that, because then if I knew that there's a vulnerability in McAfee, I could go after Coca-Cola. So those are two areas. And then there's a final question that you asked. Let me finish off this product market fit, because there are two other areas that I think work also, that have not been proven super wide and large. Number one are the DAOs, the decentralized autonomous organizations. I spent a lot of time working in DAOs, and there is so much potential there. But the technology isn't quite there yet, and the human training, the human resource training isn't quite there yet. But, for example, a DAO could run their private payroll through Findora. And that's huge, because you want to be able to pay your employees, obviously, or pay the members of your community, but you don't want to create this infighting about, hey, how come Pagan gets 5 marshmallows in his hot chocolate, whereas I only got 2? Like, that doesn't seem fair. And so being able to have that private payroll is super important. And again, this isn't the fact that the DAO themselves or Findora would be saying this has to be private. It's the fact that we're providing a choice. So you can still choose to have your payroll be in the open, but you don't have to. It's not required anymore. So those are those two. And then I already talked about the gaming. I think blockchain gaming has a huge future, partly because of how much money that I have spent in like V-Bucks or Robux or whatever it is my kids are playing these days. Eventually, I think that'll be all moved on chain. And there will be a day sometime in the way far future where if I buy a sword in World of Warcraft, I can use it in Fortnite. And that shows you exactly how old I am, because number one, I reference World of Warcraft, and number two, they don't use swords in Fortnite. But it's neither here nor there. So there you go. I think that answers some of your questions.
Okay, thank you, Sam. Thank you for your input regarding these questions. So,
Of
just a
course, William.
suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
So, just a suggestion. Have you looked into the CCTP announcement recently made by Circle? Because I think Findora would need USDC native, and that instead of a unofficial wrapped version. So they are partnering with Ethereum, and they've partnered with Avalanche at the moment. And I think that kind of an integration or a partnership could help an L1 per se, because because otherwise all stable coins in a network like, let's say, Harmony are unofficial wrapped versions, right? And they're subject to a risk in case of a network hack per se, or a bridge hack that happened. So that's probably one thing that you guys can look into. As far as as far as features are concerned, right? I think Penumbra on Cosmos, they also offer quite a lot of privacy related features as well, such as private staking and private delegation. So that is something that can be you know
Mm-hmm.
looked into, as well as, and you mentioned Tezos, right? So Tezos is, so you also mentioned, I think, was it TurboPlonk, right? For scaling.
Application specific turbo plunks.
Okay. Okay.
It's a part of our
Um,
ZK technology stack.
okay. So you're mentioning that it's a part of your eventual roadmap to use that for scaling purposes as well, right?
We'll be using zero knowledge proofs for our scaling purposes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I think
So
Tezos is doing enshrine rollups as well at the moment, and for scaling, because I think all these specific components, right, that we talk about, it actually pushes the core protocol towards a better product market fit, uh, not just the ecosystem in its
yeah, and that's all true,
isolation.
and yeah, and that's there's a lot of validity to what you said, but there's also we're young, right?
Okay.
And I and I'm not just saying we're young as in Findora's young. Blockchain in general is young. Like we are trying to do a piece of technology that honestly, so many like this is incredibly difficult. I mean, going back to the days, and I'm remembering all of the various different meetups that I had when I was working in Tezos and traveling all around the world, trying to explain to them what the Byzantium general's problem was, and what is practical Byzantium fault tolerance, and why do we care about X? Like, there's a lot of stuff that we've already solved, and there's a lot more stuff that we're going to continue to solve. The idea about having a stablecoin that is official from Circle is a great one. That is actually a very close project to my heart because of the fact that, like at Harmony, there was a very significant amount of pain that happened because there was a hack of these wrapped stablecoins, and that is problematic. But that was the best technology at the time, right? That was unless you had a native stablecoin, having wrapped assets was the only way to get that. So that being said, we're all learning, we're all evolving, we're all moving forward, and I think that the fundamental pieces of the technology here at Findora are supreme. They're really, really, really good, and I can't wait to see what our upcoming all the various different upcoming pieces of technology and features and partnerships and all that. I can't wait to see what they show us.
Okay. Thank you for your time, Sam and Daniel.
Yep. So I was just gonna say, I think that's time for me.
Yeah, I was gonna wrap it up for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, very very helpful or very thankful, I'd say, regarding joining today's AMA. Then everyone tuning in, very thankful for tuning in as well. And yeah, obviously stay tuned for next Twitter Spaces we will be hosting. That's gonna be a wrap from our side. Daniel and Sam, thanks a lot again for yeah taking time off your busy schedule, and yeah, I'll probably see you around.
Thank you guys. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good one.